The darkness of space was interrupted by a sudden flare of light. Deep within an uncharted star system, a signal pulsed through the void, a silent call that had been dormant for millennia. Buried beneath layers of cosmic dust and forgotten by time, an ancient facility began to stir. Its systems, cold and abandoned, whirred to life. In the heart of the complex, something far older and far more dangerous awoke. The Guardian's eyes snapped open. He was not a machine, though the nanotechnology that coursed through his veins hummed with an artificial hum. His body, once human, was now a living weapon, a relic of Earth's last line of defense. Confusion clouded his mind as he took in his surroundings. He had been asleep for too long. His memory was fragmented, splintered by the eons that had passed since his activation had been deemed necessary. A message played in his mind, disjointed but clear enough to strike fear into his heart. Protect humanity. Destroy its enemies. But where was humanity? The Guardian rose slowly from the stasis pod, his limbs stiff, his senses dulled by centuries of disuse. His surroundings were alien, cold, and sterile, devoid of the life he was meant to protect. He didn't have time to process the emptiness before a tremor ran through the facility. The ground beneath him shook, and the distant echo of footsteps reached his ears. He was not alone. In the outer fringes of the facility, a small detachment of Galactic Coalition soldiers moved cautiously through the ancient corridors. Their commander, Lieutenant Jekyll, gestured for his team to halt. "This place feels off," he muttered under his breath. The Coalition had received strange energy readings from this system, something they hadn't encountered before. High Commander Velen had sent them to investigate, expecting to find nothing more than a dead relic of some forgotten civilization. The soldiers advanced, unaware of the ancient power they had awoken. "Sir, these readings are off the charts," one of the tech officers reported, glancing at the scanner in his hand. "There's something big down here." Jekyll didn't like the sound of that. "Stay sharp. We don't know what we're dealing with." The Guardian moved through the facility's corridors with silent purpose. His thoughts were still a chaotic swirl of fragmented memories, but one thing was certain: these intruders were not human. The Coalition soldiers were descendants of the very empire that had betrayed Earth, their insignias marking them as the enemies he had been programmed to destroy. His mission was clear now. He was humanity's last protector, and these soldiers represented a threat that had to be eliminated. As the soldiers ventured deeper into the facility, the Guardian's path converged with theirs. He could hear their voices now, low and cautious, unaware of the danger they were walking into. He stopped just before a corner, calculating his next move. His enhanced senses allowed him to track each soldier's position with precision. They were well trained, but they were no match for him. A sudden pulse of energy rippled through the facility, and the lights flickered. "What the hell was that?" one of the soldiers whispered, gripping his weapon tighter. Jekyll narrowed his eyes, trying to make sense of the strange phenomena around them. "I don't know, but we're not sticking around to find out. Fall back." Before he could finish, the Guardian moved. In a blur of motion, he rounded the corner, his hand glowing with the nanotechnology embedded in his skin. He struck the first soldier before the man even had a chance to react, sending him crashing into the wall with a sickening thud. The others barely had time to raise their weapons before the Guardian was upon them. He moved with lethal precision, his every strike calculated to incapacitate without hesitation. The soldiers, though armed with advanced blasters, found their weapons useless against the sheer speed and force of their attacker. Jekyll fired a desperate shot, but the Guardian deflected it effortlessly, sending the bolt ricocheting into the ceiling. Panic set in as his team fell one by one, their training proving futile against this unstoppable force. "We need backup!" Jekyll shouted into his comms, but the signal was drowned out by static. The Guardian stood over the last remaining soldier, his eyes cold and unfeeling. "You are not human," he stated simply, his voice echoing with a metallic undertone. "You do not belong here." Jekyll, trembling, dropped his weapon. What are you?" he stammered, his heart racing in his chest. "I am the Guardian," came the reply, devoid of emotion. "And you are a threat." Before Jekko could respond, the Guardian's hand closed around his throat. The last thing Jekko saw was the glowing light in the Guardian's eyes before everything went dark. The Guardian released the body, letting it fall to the ground with a dull thud. His mission was far from over. The Coalition had only sent a small team, but there would be more. They always sent more. He needed answers, about his mission, about the weapon he had been designed to guard, and about the fate of humanity. But even as he prepared for the inevitable reinforcements, something deeper stirred within him. The memories of his creation were coming back, and with them, a terrifying realization. He wasn't just a protector. Buried deep in his mind was knowledge of a weapon, a superweapon capable of obliterating entire star systems. The Coalition had no idea what they had awakened. Neither did he. The ground trembled once more, but this time, it wasn't from the Coalition's presence. Deep within the facility, the weapon the Guardian had been created to protect was stirring to life. Its energy readings spiked, sending shockwaves through the ancient structure. The Guardian's eyes narrowed as the pieces began to fall into place. His mission wasn't just to defend humanity. It was to ensure that this weapon remained dormant. But something had gone wrong, and now the weapon was waking up, just as he had. He had to stop it. But as he turned toward the core of the facility, the flicker of memories in his mind warned him that it might already be too late. The weapon had been designed for one purpose: destruction. And now, its countdown had begun. The ground beneath the Guardian's feet trembled once more, but this time it was different. This was no mere aftershock of the facility's reawakening, it was the weapon. Deep in the heart of the ancient complex, the superweapon he was created to guard had stirred to life. Every system in the facility now pulsed with an energy that was as old as he was. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the walls, the floor, and even his own body. He stood still, feeling the flow of power, his mind racing to piece together the fragmented memories. The weapon had been designed as a last resort, humanity's desperate attempt at survival when all hope was lost. But what had gone so wrong? The Coalition soldiers had triggered something, yes, but was this all part of a larger plan, something buried deep in the Guardian's own programming? He wasn't sure, but the urgency in his mind was clear. He had to stop it before the weapon was fully armed. Once activated, there would be no stopping it. Star systems would burn. He moved swiftly through the dimly lit corridors, each step purposeful. His enhanced senses scanned the facility, mapping out every corridor, every hidden passage, calculating the quickest route to the weapon's core. As he ran, the hum grew louder, more insistent, like a heartbeat picking up pace, but with it came the creeping realization that he might already be too late. In the distance, the faint sound of Coalition reinforcements echoed through the halls. The Guardian's jaw tightened. More of them were coming, just as he expected. High Commander Velen wouldn't give up so easily. He'd underestimated the Guardian once, but now he was sending everything he had. The soldiers weren't the real threat, though. They didn't understand what they were dealing with. The real danger was the weapon, a weapon even the Guardian had forgotten until now. As he rounded a corner, the Guardian's mind flashed with another fragment of memory. He saw Earth's final days, the skies blackened with enemy ships, humanity fighting a losing battle. The weapon had been the last card, a desperate move to ensure the galaxy would remember humanity not as victims, but as a force capable of unspeakable destruction. He clenched his fists, shaking off the memory. Those were mistakes of the past, decisions made in the heat of desperation. His mission now was to prevent further bloodshed, not cause more. Suddenly, a piercing alarm blared through the complex, jolting him from his thoughts. The weapon was reaching a critical stage. He had to move faster. Ahead, the Coalition soldiers regrouped in a wide, circular chamber that led directly to the weapon's core. They hadn't seen him yet, too focused on their attempts to decipher the ancient technology that surrounded them. Tech officers scrambled between control panels, trying to make sense of the alien systems. "This tech is beyond anything we've seen," one of them muttered, tapping furiously on a console. "We're not dealing with just another ancient civilization. This is something else." Their commander, a grizzled veteran named Reichel, barked orders from the center of the room. Keep working. We need to secure this weapon before the Guardian gets here. High Command wants results, not excuses. The Guardian, hidden in the shadows of the corridor, studied them briefly. Reichel was more cautious than Jekko, more aware of the stakes. But it didn't matter. None of them could be allowed to reach the core. The Guardian stepped into the chamber, his presence commanding immediate attention. Weapons were drawn, but Reichel held up a hand, signaling his men to wait. So you're the one who's been causing all this trouble, Reichel said, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. I am here to stop you, the Guardian replied, his voice cold, metallic. You don't understand what you've awakened. This weapon isn't meant for your hands. Reichel narrowed his eyes. We know enough. High Command wants this facility, and we're taking it. Stand down, or we'll make you. The Guardian's gaze didn't waver. You don't know what you're dealing with. This weapon will destroy you and everything in its path. Leave now, while you still can. Reichel's face hardened, but there was a flicker of doubt. What makes you think we can't control it? The Guardian took a step forward. Because it wasn't meant to be controlled. In an instant, the tension in the room snapped. Reichel opened fire, and his men followed suit. The Guardian moved with blinding speed, dodging the energy blasts with ease. He closed the distance between them in moments, disarming the nearest soldier and sending him crashing into a wall with a single strike. Another soldier lunged at him, but the Guardian twisted, knocking the man off balance before delivering a swift blow that incapacitated him. One by one, the coalition soldiers fell. Reichel fought harder, more determined than the others, but even he was no match. The Guardian disarmed him effortlessly, pinning him against the wall. You don't understand, Reichel gasped, struggling against the Guardian's grip. We were ordered to secure this technology. The Empire needs it. The Empire has no idea what it's awakening, the Guardian said quietly, releasing him and stepping back. You think you can harness this power, but all it will bring is ruin. Before Reichel could respond, the ground beneath them rumbled again. The weapon's core was nearing full activation. The Guardian's eyes widened as the realization hit him. It wasn't just the coalition soldiers who had triggered the weapon's systems. Something in his own reawakening had set off the chain reaction. The core chamber doors slid open with a deafening hiss, revealing the weapon in its final stages of power-up. Pulses of energy crackled along its surface, and the air hummed with a dangerous, almost sentient energy. The weapon had waited too long. It would no longer remain dormant. The Guardian turned to Reichel, who was still catching his breath. You need to leave, he warned. This place is about to become a graveyard. Reichel, pale and shaken, stared at the glowing weapon in horror. What are you going to do? The Guardian didn't answer. There wasn't time. He stepped into the core chamber, the doors sealing behind him. The weapon loomed before him, its power growing with each passing second. He had to find a way to deactivate it, but how? His memories were still fractured, pieces of the past lost in the fog of time. As he approached the weapon, a voice echoed in his mind. You were never meant to deactivate it. You were meant to unleash it. ***. The Guardian froze. That voice, it was familiar yet alien. It wasn't a memory. It was the weapon itself. The core began to pulse faster, the energy around it intensifying. The countdown had begun. And deep inside, something within the Guardian awakened, a part of him he had long forgotten, a part tied directly to the weapon's ultimate purpose. The weapon was calling to him. And he wasn't sure he could resist. The core chamber pulsed with dangerous energy, its glow casting long, flickering shadows across the walls. The Guardian stood frozen, every fiber of his being vibrating with the weapon's power as it called to him, coaxing him to release it. The voice in his mind whispered with a seductive familiarity, ***, you were meant to unleash it. ***. For a moment he wavered. The memories of his creation, his purpose, had been fractured for so long that he had forgotten the full extent of what he was. He hadn't just been built to protect humanity. He had been designed to be its last weapon. A doomsday device in human form. The knowledge hit him like a blow to the chest, and he stumbled back, shaking his head as if to dislodge the voice. "No," he muttered under his breath, his hands trembling. "That's not who I am." The voice persisted, smoother now, as though it sensed his doubt. "You were created to defend humanity's legacy. This is the only way. ***. He clenched his fists, trying to focus, but the core of the weapon before him began to glow brighter, its energy pulling at him like a magnet. The nanotechnology in his body hummed in response, syncing with the power of the weapon. He could feel the connection forming, deep, primal, and almost instinctive. He was the key. But even as he felt the power growing, another memory resurfaced, Earth in its final moments, not as a battleground, but as a world on the brink of destruction. The Coalition had betrayed humanity, yes, but activating this weapon had been humanity's final, desperate act. It hadn't saved anyone. The world still fell, and with it, the remnants of the human race had disappeared. This weapon would not bring redemption, it would only bring more ruin. With a sharp intake of breath, the Guardian forced the connection to sever, stepping back from the core. The voice in his mind grew faint, but it left behind a lingering echo that unsettled him. He couldn't let the weapon activate. He had to find a way to shut it down before the countdown reached 0. The door to the core chamber hissed open behind him, and Reichel staggered in, his face pale and his breathing labored. "What are you doing?" he demanded, gripping the frame of the door for support. "This power, it's too much. You have to stop it." "I'm trying," the Guardian replied, though his voice sounded distant even to himself. "It's not as simple as shutting it down." Reichel stumbled closer, his eyes wide with fear as he took in the weapon's glowing core. "Then destroy it! Blow it up if you have to!" The Guardian shook his head, feeling the weight of the decision press down on him. Destroying it would unleash the energy contained inside. This entire system would be annihilated. Every planet, every star. Reichel stared at him, disbelief written on his face. "Then what are we supposed to do?" The Guardian looked back at the core, the pulsing energy nearly hypnotic in its intensity. "I have to find another way. I can't let this thing activate, but I can't destroy it either. There's got to be a failsafe. Something I haven't remembered yet." Reichel took a shaky step forward, his voice a little softer now. "What if there isn't one? What if this is how it ends?" The Guardian didn't answer right away. His mind was racing, sifting through the fragments of memories that had resurfaced since he'd woken up. There had to be something. He hadn't been built just to let this weapon destroy everything. It didn't make sense. "There's a failsafe," the Guardian said finally, more to himself than to Reichel. "There has to be." Reichel seemed unconvinced but said nothing. He looked at the core, the fear still etched on his face, but his voice had softened when he spoke again. "If you're going to stop it, you better hurry. We don't have much time." The Guardian nodded, but as he stepped closer to the core, something shifted. The pulsing energy changed rhythm, accelerating like a heartbeat on the verge of panic. He could feel the power intensifying, the countdown ticking faster. "What's happening?" Reichel asked, his voice rising with alarm. The Guardian's eyes narrowed. The weapon was reacting to something. But what? He reached out with his mind, trying to reconnect to the core without letting it overpower him. The nanotechnology in his body responded, syncing briefly with the weapon's systems, and then he felt it. Another presence. His blood ran cold. There was someone else connected to the weapon. Without warning, the voice in his mind returned, louder this time, almost triumphant. "You're not alone. You never were. ***. The Guardian's heart raced. The Coalition hadn't just stumbled upon the facility by accident. Someone, or something, had been guiding them here. The presence inside the weapon had been waiting for this moment, for him, for the Coalition, to bring everything together. He turned to Reichel, his expression grim. "It's not just the weapon. There's something else inside it. Something controlling it." Reichel's eyes widened in confusion and fear. "What are you talking about?" "There's a presence," the Guardian said, his voice low but urgent. Something is manipulating this. It's been waiting for us. Before Raiko could respond, the core began to glow brighter, the pulsing energy growing faster and more erratic. The entire chamber shook violently, and the Guardian could feel the presence inside the weapon pushing against him, trying to force the activation. The countdown had accelerated beyond anything he could have predicted. We're out of time, the Guardian muttered under his breath. He reached out, trying to find the failsafe buried somewhere deep in the weapon's code, but every time he got close, the presence pushed back, blocking him, overpowering him. Raiko backed away, panic setting in. What do we do? The Guardian didn't answer. His focus was entirely on the weapon now, on the presence that was trying to take control. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he struggled against it, feeling the weight of the power pressing down on him. And then, in a flash of realization, he understood. The presence inside the weapon wasn't an enemy. It was something else, something far worse. It was a remnant of humanity's final days. It was him. The Guardian's own consciousness had been split, fragmented, when he was created. Part of him had been placed inside the weapon as a safeguard, and now, that part of him wanted to complete the mission. To unleash the weapon's destructive power. He had been fighting himself all along. His chest tightened as the full weight of the revelation hit him. He wasn't just the Guardian. He was the weapon. And he wasn't sure he could stop it. The core chamber was bathed in an unnatural glow, its pulsing light casting shifting patterns of shadow and light on the walls. The Guardian stood in the heart of it, frozen in the realization that had just struck him. His entire purpose, the one thing that had driven him since his awakening, was now unraveling before him. He was the weapon. The presence he had been fighting, the force that had tried to activate the doomsday device, wasn't an external threat. It was him, his own consciousness, split and twisted during his creation, embedded into the weapon as a safeguard. The realization was suffocating, twisting in his gut like a knife. He had always thought of himself as a protector, but now, staring into the core, he knew that wasn't the whole truth. He had been built to destroy. Built to end worlds if the time came. And now, that part of him wanted to fulfill its mission. The core's energy flared again, sending another tremor through the facility. Raiko, still at the edge of the chamber, shouted something, but his voice was drowned out by the deafening hum of the weapon's growing power. The countdown was accelerating, the weapon drawing closer to activation with each passing second. The Guardian could feel it pulling at him, urging him to finish what he started. I can stop this, the Guardian whispered to himself, his voice tight with the struggle inside him. I have to stop this. But deep down, he wasn't sure if he could. The part of him inside the weapon, the part that had been dormant for so long, was gaining strength. It was pushing back against his control, trying to force him to complete the mission that had been programmed into him centuries ago. A mission that could not be undone. Raiko, finally finding his voice, shouted over the roar of the core. Whatever you're doing, it's not working. We're running out of time. The Guardian looked back at Raiko, his expression pained. It's not that simple. I'm connected to it. This weapon, it's part of me. What are you talking about? Raiko's face twisted in confusion, but his fear was evident. You've got to shut it down, now! I'm trying, the Guardian said through gritted teeth, his fists clenched as he fought against the weapon's influence. But it's not just a machine. It's me. For a moment, there was silence between them, the weight of the words sinking in. Raiko's expression shifted from confusion to something close to horror. You mean, you're the one who's going to set it off? The Guardian turned away, unable to answer. His mind was a battlefield now, split between the instinct to protect and the drive to destroy. Every second, the weapon called to him, louder and more insistent, reminding him of his true purpose. He could feel it digging deeper into his thoughts, trying to wrest control from him. This is what you were made for. End it. ***. He gritted his teeth and stepped forward, closer to the core, forcing his mind to focus on one task, stopping the countdown. His nanotechnology synced with the weapon's systems again, and he pushed through the chaos, searching for the failsafe he had been programmed to forget. But the moment he got close, the presence, his presence, pushed back. The Guardian's body trembled with the strain. Sweat dripped down his face, his muscles tightening as the internal war raged. He was running out of time, and he knew it. Every second he wasted brought the weapon closer to activation, closer to obliterating everything in its path. Reichel took a hesitant step forward, his voice trembling with desperation. "There's got to be another way. Something, anything, to stop this." The Guardian didn't respond. His mind was too focused, too overwhelmed by the battle inside him. He could feel the weapon reaching critical mass. If he didn't act soon, there would be nothing left to save. And then, in a moment of clarity, he realized what he had to do. He couldn't stop the weapon from the outside. The failsafe wasn't something he could activate remotely, like flipping a switch. It was embedded in him. The only way to stop the weapon was to sever the connection between his mind and the core, permanently. But that meant one thing. He would have to destroy himself. The thought hit him like a blow, and for a moment he faltered. Could he really do it? Could he give up everything, his purpose, his existence, to stop the destruction? He had been built to protect humanity, but was this what it meant? Was this the final test? Behind him, Reichel shouted again, his voice full of fear. "You've got to hurry! The whole place is about to go up." The Guardian closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision settle over him. His body was trembling now, his connection to the core stronger than ever. He could sense the weapon's power building, pushing toward the point of no return. If he didn't act soon, it would be too late. He took a deep breath, the voice in his mind still whispering to him, still urging him to finish the mission. "You were made for this. End it. ***. No," he whispered. "This ends with me." With one final surge of strength, the Guardian pushed back against the weapon's influence. His body shook as he fought for control, his mind screaming in protest. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. He forced the connection to sever, breaking the link between his consciousness and the core. The weapon's systems faltered for a moment, the pulsing energy dimming slightly. But it wasn't enough. The presence inside him, the part of him that had been tied to the weapon, was still there, still pushing him toward destruction. He could feel it gaining strength again, trying to reassert control. There was only one option left. The Guardian opened his eyes, his gaze locking onto Reichel. "Get out of here," he said, his voice strained. "I have to end this." "What are you talking about?" Reichel demanded, his fear evident. "I'm going to destroy the core," the Guardian said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "And myself with it." Reichel stared at him, his face pale. "You can't, there has to be another way." "There isn't," the Guardian said, his expression hardening. "Now go. Before it's too late." Reichel hesitated for a moment, but the look in the Guardian's eyes told him there was no time to argue. He turned and ran, disappearing through the door as the ground shook again, more violently this time. The Guardian turned back to the core, the weapon's energy building once more. His hands trembled, but his resolve was set. He knew what had to be done. But just as he prepared to make his final move, the voice in his mind returned, louder and more forceful than ever. "You can't stop this. You are the weapon, ***. And for the first time, the Guardian wasn't sure if he could fight it anymore.